Habermas, to a degree, want to both have law as a requirement, the Constitution as a requirement, but without the original sin. I mean, they sort of want it both ways. They want to say the law is there for coordination, the law is there for all sorts of reasons, but not because of our basic sinfulness. So is that a fair way of seeing it? So that Schmidt, in your view of the world, is against the law because he celebrates the authoritarian moment. He celebrates the moment when someone has to step up and be outside the law, the dictatorial moment. So
yeah, that's the moment of political intensity, is the suspension of legality for Schmidt, which is the he's playing out his understanding of Roman law, but also moments of revolutionary interruption. It's why I love Lenin so much, right? Because Lenin was all about the suspension of the legal framework of the state through a nakedly political act. But rules. It's a good question. I mean, in relationship to Habermas, firstly, I mean, I lived in Frankfurt in 1997, just after Habermas retired, and I know that world quite well, and it's odd insofar as it's easy to take pot shots at Habermas, and I did it in the book. But I have enormous respect for Habermas, and it's easy to say that. But really, the problem that Habermas, in his best book, was trying to grapple with, his best book, in my view, is Knowledge and Human Interests from, 73 or something, is precisely the problem that I'm trying to deal with, right? Which is the problem of how do we link together reason with the motivation to act on reason. Now, in Knowledge and Human Interests, that takes Habermas into a really brilliant account of the formation of subjectivity in his engagement with psychoanalysis. That's where the book finishes. He abandons that and then embraces discourse ethics, and his work goes off in a different direction. And different people have tried to criticize that, like Axel Honneth, saying we need a more robust idea of recognition at the basis of Habermas' discourse, blah, blah, blah. And that's all true. But whatever you say about Habermas, and the reason why Habermas can't be John Gray is because, for John Gray, there is John Gray is like a sort of, legality has authority insofar as it's enshrined in tradition, right? So it's sort of a common law approach to law, right?
And a sort of pragmatic realist one, in the sense that for Gray, law the law is needed because of original sin, in whatever form that original sin comes.
Whereas for Habermas, obviously, the fact of National Socialism means that traditions cannot be appealed to in that ready way. Now, which makes him a universalist, which is all very nice. But Habermas, when Habermas in the work, I suppose in the 90s, is appealing to what he calls constitutional patriotism, he's identified the problem, which is the Rousseauist problem. So my point is that Habermas, throughout his career, has been haunted by that Rousseauist problem. How can a universal idea of reason get grip in a finite context with human beings who are drawn by affects in potentially wayward ways? And what he wants is a notion of the Constitution that is going to invite that strong Rousseauian idea of patriotism, that we would love the Constitution. Now,
so the law itself should become the object of this religion, as it were.
Law becomes the object of awe.
Yes.
And of course, in Germany, that
not shock and awe, law and awe.
Yeah, that's in Germany that's never quite happened. I mean, the only thing that really had awe was the Deutschmark until its much lamented disappearance. And obviously, forms of non-constitutional patriotism from a German perspective pose huge problems, understandable problems. Now, in the American context, let's say with Obama, there is constitutional. The only patriotism that's out there is constitutional patriotism. Every politician in the U.S. has to be a constitutional patriot. You have to love it the way in which Pascal had the text of his conversion, the Knight of Fire, sewn into his jacket. You have to have the Constitution there. The only issue becomes the question of how you're going to interpret that Constitution. So,
is there on that? And this struck me as you were talking about Madison earlier. It seems to me that the American sense of a manifest destiny is beyond the Constitution. The manifest destiny is something else on top of that, and is almost the kind of Holy Spirit that circles around the Constitution.
There's the Constitution, which was written by human hands, but divinely inspired. You've got, if not the Holy Spirit, then you have appeals to God. But again, this is where Schmitt is absolutely right, and it's also very true of Obama. This is a deistic idea of God. So, for me, so if you read The Audacity of Hope, and I read the book very closely in 2008, and it is, as someone that's interested in autobiography, it's just fascinating, because it's clear for this young man, as when he was writing the first book and the second book, what fills the void at his heart is the Constitution, and the Constitution underwritten by an idea of the deity. But and so you get the chapters in The Audacity of Hope on the Constitution and the chapters on religion, and the two things are linked. But and this is what makes Obama a liberal. There is a God, but that God cannot override the fact of law. Right? That God cannot intercede in the Constitution or suspend the Constitution, which means that Obama is not a Christian. Right? He's a deist. And this is a very important point, because this takes us back to a really fascinating debate. I don't want to talk about this in the book, but it's been on my mind because I was talking to Cornel West recently about this, and it's very much what's on his mind, is that the tradition of prophetic Christianity, historically black prophetic Christianity in the US, is Christian in the sense in which Christ is that being who became incarnated and moved in the world, right? And did miracles. That's the sort of God that Christians believe. The sort of God that Obama believes in is a God who sort of animates things. There's some sort of vague presence out there, but who cannot interrupt the workings of law. So it's and that's a very profound difference theologically. And I'm much more interested in the prophetic side than the sort of deistic side. So liberals are, it's a kind of halfway house in response to your original question. They believe in a sort of perfectible human condition, but a perfectibility that depends upon the flourishing of one's private interests protected by a benign constitution.
So it's almost as if the law allows for the eradication of original sin, because by creating the sphere in which by giving us the world, offering us a world in which we're not sinful. So in other words, as long as the law is there, then we're not sinful. We're constituted as not being sinful. As against Gray, who would say we're always going to be sinful, and you need the rod of a traditionally backed law in order to keep us on that straight and narrow path.
That's right.
So in that, tell us a little bit about Badiou. So Badiou and St. Paul in particular, because here so Schmitt of that authoritarianism, on the exceptionalism that we associate with Schmitt and with as a rather authoritarian right. In Badiou, we see to some extent on a. I mean, you might disagree with this, but it seems to me that one veers to seeing it on an authoritarian left. In that case, I mean, you express some sympathy for Badiou, but it seems to me that Badiou and Schmitt are quite similar, at least at this level of theology.
Yes, I mean it's